Welcome to Hopeful Conversations, brought to you by Robbie's Hope Foundation. I am your host, Kari Eckert. Joining me today is one of our Robbie's Hope interns, Lila Paton. Lila is the producer of this podcast. We are excited to present a different episode to our audience. We have asked our Robbie's Hope ambassadors and anyone following Robbie's Hope social media to send in anonymous confessions ranging from secrets, struggles, fears, loves, mistakes, regrets, and of course, hopes. Lila has chosen a few of them with the help of the other interns for today's podcast, and we are going to discuss. So let's get into it. Welcome to Hopeful Conversations.
Thank you. I'm excited to finally be on the podcast. So exciting.
Fantastic. We're excited to have you. Okay, so we have this labeled as confessions.
Yes.
Number one, I don't think I will ever be as happy as I was these past few months ever again for the rest of my life.
Okay, I thought this was a really strong one to start off with because I think everyone feels like this at a certain point in their life. I definitely have. Over the summer, heading back into school, I often feel myself getting sad and kind of depressed that, the fun months are over and school's starting back up. And especially when you get into winter, you feel yourself just getting down with the weather. And I know I've talked to a lot of people that feel the same way. And so I just really wanted to note this one because happiness and emotions in general come in waves. It's like a roller coaster. And so you may be feeling really happy or you may be feeling really down, and both of those feelings are normal and you're going to feel them again. Like, it's inevitable that you're going to feel those emotions again, but just know that they won't stay permanent.
They're fleeting.
Yeah, they're fleeting.
When I read that, I feel like there's a little bit of concern about the future. Like, I had the happiness, can it be sustained? And that seems like that's hard.
Right.
Kind of a learned skill. I know from personal experience. Like, it's those swings, those up and downs, those natural no emotions.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay, let's move on to number 2. I feel awkward talking about my stress to some of my friends because I feel like they will think that my stress does not add up to theirs. So I bottle it up and try to help others. But when I talk about my own stress, it seems like no one really cares because I choose all of the classes and extracurriculars I am in.
Okay, so I thought this was really pertinent to kids in high school because I think high school can be a very competitive place, and a lot of the time you're competing for the same thing and you don't even know it. Like, it's not like you want to be competing with your friends and comparing yourself to your friends or people you don't even know, but I think it just happens naturally. And so I think what this person is getting at is like the stress that comes with the classes and extracurriculars they chose shouldn't be talked about because their friends just see it as like, oh, that you chose to do this. Like, this was your decision. But I think it's more than okay to talk about the stress and all the feelings that comes with that, because although this person did choose these classes, like, the stress is still very real. And I definitely struggled with this a little bit. My freshman year was just like bottling up the feelings, like the overwhelming feelings and stress from class and friends and extracurriculars. And I chose not to talk about it, but it's so hard when you bottle feelings up because they just build on each other and you have no outlet to express them in any way. And so they just get bottled up inside of you and eventually you burst and it sucks. And so I think it's really, really important to talk about whatever feelings you may have. I once was recommended to just stop and think throughout the day about what I'm feeling and what my thoughts have been along like my school day. And that helped to like help me at night when I was trying to fall asleep, not think about everything. Like as soon as your head hits the pillow, just your mind is like just starts running and working. And so that's helped for my head not to do that. I would just kind of process what was going on throughout the day rather
as
than
it happened.
Right, as it
versus
happens.
like playing that rewind at the end of the day.
Yes.
Huh. That's super interesting. What a good tool that you were given.
Yeah, it really helps. And so I also think it's really important to have your friends as an outlet, as your friends as someone to talk to and confide in, because that's what they're there for. Like you should be able to trust your friends with this kind of stuff.
And not have to preface your feelings and compare like how are they going to react.
Yes.
I guess I read in there and as listening to you, like, yes, these hard classes and these extracurriculars being a choice, but like that's our society, like the pressure, like,
yes.
Is it really a choice? Like so many young people like feel like they have to do that it isn't a choice.
Right.
Yeah. It's super interesting. I know even my friends, like I love having friends that I can confide in and talk about my feelings, but often they will preface their, like what they're trying to go through in comparison to myself and like loss. And it's like, please don't do that. Like your feelings are just as valid just because you're talking to me. And yes, I've had a very, very significant loss. Like we don't need to compare, like loss is loss, feeling is feeling.
Right.
Like we don't have to, but for some reason as humans, we do that.
Yeah.
It's super. Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 3, I am constantly afraid that the way I respond to people's questions makes it seem like I don't like them. Because of that, I always watch what I say and it gets stressful because I always freak out after, afraid that I said something bad, even though I probably did not.
So I think this plays into social anxiety and just having to watch your mouth in cases where you should feel safe and comfortable to just speak your opinion. I think this is something that a lot of young people struggle with in school settings, definitely.
Like a classroom type setting?
Yeah, like a classroom type setting or just with your friends. It's like saying something and then constantly thinking about it after the fact. And it's like you might have said just one sentence and then you're thinking about it for the entire day. And I don't know, I just really wanted to put this one in here because I know a lot of kids like think about this a lot, but even with like their parents or their siblings, like, and I feel like if you have people you feel safe and comfortable around, this definitely should not be a worry, but it's easier said than done. I don't know. What do you make of it?
I think it still happens to me as an adult. You know, I am an empathetic person. I process my thoughts. I process my feelings, like talking about the tool that you were given about like throughout the day. I think there's just some humanness in that.
Yes.
How do we handle it so that we don't, like these are really strong words. I freak out after. It gets really super stressful, anxiety producing.
Yeah.
Like you said, the people that you trust in your circle, like you should be able to be authentic with them.
Yes.
And maybe, it's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of makes me just pause and think a little bit like, how can we do better with that just as humans? It's a tough one.
Yeah, for sure.
This one's hard for me. I struggle the most to try and keep myself safe at night. I can be okay and perfect all day, and then night hits and it's a struggle to get through the night.
So, okay, I kind of interpreted the first part as like to keep this person's headspace safe. I think it was more of a mental thing than a physical. I mean, I guess it could be both, actually.
Right.
I think it could be both, definitely. But I think, you know, during the day, especially if you go to school, you're surrounded by people all the time. And then maybe you have something after school, like a sport, or you're in the play or work or like any extracurricular. And so your mind is constantly working with that activity that you're doing, and you're constantly surrounded by people, maybe that you do know, maybe that you don't. And so I think once night hits, as this person is saying, you get home, you get into your room, maybe your parents are making dinner, your siblings are away doing their homework, and it's just you. And I think that can be really frightening for some people, because once they're alone, they don't know what's going to happen. And it's scary because you are just alone with your thoughts. And I think that could be really overwhelming to people. Yeah.
You're alone with your thoughts. Yeah, that's such a sign that leads to, or it is like loneliness and a person who's isolating. But like, I think during the day when you're at school and you're around people and you're in social environments, like you're constantly getting feedback.
Right.
Versus when you're alone, your feedback is your mind, and how self kind of feeding and defeating your mind can be. Like your mind can spin out of control pretty quickly, usually in a negative way. That's a very human, sadly, kind of just the way our mind operates, versus it's much harder to tell yourself something positive than negative.
Yes.
Like, but for most of us, it's much easier to tell other people positive things versus telling ourselves something positive. Or it kind of reminds me of like an exercise that you can do is like stand in front of the mirror and tell yourself like 5 positive things you see about yourself, or for 60 seconds, stand in front of the mirror and just talk positively to yourself.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And that loneliness at night, the darkness, just that spiral almost.
Yeah. I like that. The affirmations. I think that's a big thing. I think if people start to do it and they don't believe what they're saying, and so often people will give up. But I mean, I think what you tell yourself constantly becomes true. And so affirmations, I think, is a really good way to just talk positively, obviously to yourself. But I also think that if you're in this case and you're alone at night and you're kind of struggling with your thoughts, journaling is a really good way to just get it out there, because it's not like you're talking to yourself and then responding. Like, you're just writing it all out, writing all of your feelings and thoughts out on paper, and you can read back, and it's like, sometimes it's not even coherent, but like, it just feels so good to get it out. And I think this also goes back to the point I made about just processing it throughout the day rather than leaving it all to process at night. And I also just think something that would help with this is finding things that bring you comfort on your own. So for me, I really like to just take a shower and clean my room and make sure my space is clean and tidy. And for some people it's journaling, some people it's like going for a run. And so I just think finding that one thing that brings you comfort and joy when you're alone is really important and can help you process the negative feelings.
Positive self-care.
Yes.
That's very much kind of a learned skill.
Yeah. Definitely.
Maybe changes with time and the environment, the circumstances. Like when you go away to college and have a roommate, that might change. Journaling's, definitely a learned skill. It's not easy.
No.
Definitely. Like, do you reread? Or you said like sometimes reread. I have a tendency just to let it out, and then I don't try to look at it again.
Yeah, that's good.
I always say I'm not afraid of anything because trauma has caused me to not get scared. However, I am secretly afraid to disappoint others and to trust people.
Yeah. I think we all have fears that we're aware of but don't want to admit. And clearly this is one for this person. I think being afraid to disappoint others is really sad because it plays into the social anxiety part. You know, you watch what you say in settings that you should feel comfortable in. You're constantly thinking about the words that come out of your mouth at any second of the day, and just trusting people. That's really, really hard, because having someone you trust and able to confide in is so important to just get your feelings out and connect with someone. And I think it is definitely hard to trust people, especially after you've been hurt, and your trust has been betrayed.
Yeah, this person uses the word trauma, and
Yeah.
like your generation, the amount of trauma that most of you have collectively experienced is like documented to be so much greater than my generation. It doesn't have to be like someone physically hurting you. It can be words. Like trauma is such a self thing to assess, but the trust part and being afraid that you're disappointing others. Is trust still something that we have to earn with one another?
I think people approach trust differently. I know there's some people think that like trust is earned, and some people think that trust is given but is taken away once you like disobey that trust. I think I'm more of a trust is earned type of gal, just because, I don't know, I've run into some cases where I've opened up to people I don't really know very well and then have been later on kind of just stabbed in the back. So I think it's different for everyone. Like, I think it also means different things to people. But it's definitely really, really important.
It is really important. Yeah. It's a value that like a core value of mine. And I can't really pinpoint it as to why. I think, I don't know, like lying is just, lying and trust for me kind of go together, and like, I can't even make a white lie. Like it's so just in my core, like, and trusting others is so, so important.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's what people look for in friendships.
Yeah.
I like when people are looking to befriend someone, I think they have a few things that they look for in a friend, and trust, I think, is a big one for a lot of people. And so, yeah, this is definitely a tough situation to be in. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of trying to build that trust with a select few people that you know care about you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. I'm a trans male and I keep it a secret at home because my family doesn't support it. And at school, I'm open about it. So it's a secret. It's hard only being able to be who I want to be in certain places, atmospheres. So this person, their family does not know that they are a trans male, but at school, they're okay with having it known. And leads to it's only being able to be who I want to be in a certain place, atmosphere. That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously can't relate to this, but I think the idea of being yourself in only certain places, I think a lot of people can relate to. I think this obviously is much less severe than this case, but I know a lot of people will change how they act around certain friends and certain people. I've struggled with that, just kind of mending to the personality of whoever I'm around.
It's a good word. Yeah.
And just kind of replicating them or mirroring them. And so it feels like, you're being yourself, you're having fun, and then you get into a different situation with different people and you're acting a completely different way. And it's like, well, who really am I? Like I can't gauge who I really am because when I'm around these people, I act a different way than when I'm around these people. And so I think when you're alone, you question yourself and your thoughts can spiral, and it's kind of just a hard thing to work out.
Yeah. The takeaway for me for this one, I think like what you just said about mending to different situations, different groups of people, that's like very common humanness, especially for your age. And it still happens to me as an adult. I think my takeaway for this one is the trans male part and at home, like your family. Most of us think that that's like the people that are like in our true, like closest relationships, and not being able to be authentic there has to be very, very difficult.
Yeah. And just the fear of, because obviously people know if this person is open up about it at school, the fear that they'll be outed to their family.
Oh, that'd be big.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sure that plays a role in this.
I'm glad that they have an open space at school, that it is supportive, because I think for a lot of young people or a lot of trans people, it can be kind of the opposite. Like home is safe and that core group of people is safe, but then like especially like a high schooler, like that can be pretty judgmental type of a situation.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. I quit therapy because my therapist made me feel like everything was bad due to everybody in my life. She wouldn't let me take responsibility for anything and blamed everyone for my issues. Sounds like this person had a really poor therapist.
Yeah.
Which happens.
Right.
And is, like, I don't know, I make a lot of referrals to young people about therapy, and it takes work to find that right therapist, just like it takes work to find the right group of friends that you can be authentic and true with. But I think that's just an unfortunate case.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to your point, I think it's just like the first therapist you talk to might not be the perfect match. And so, I don't know, you just got to keep working and opening up to find that match. I think, just finding the person that you feel comfortable with opening up to and seeking therapy from is really important, because myself personally, I've had a few therapists, and I have had a few therapists because they haven't been the perfect match for me. So I think it's a really, really normal thing. And one therapist that is good for your friend or your family member might not be good for you. So
yeah. And that's the way a lot of people find their therapists, is through like word of mouth and friends. Yeah, the world of therapy is really hard, but it is available, and there are really good therapists. And there's some not so great ones too.
Yeah.
And finding that match is important for certain.
Yeah.
Okay. I really will never understand how people think mental health disorders are fake and that people make them up.
Yeah, I think this was really prevalent because, there's some people that have struggled with their own mental health, or have loved ones that have struggled with theirs. And then there's some people that just completely thinks it's a hoax. And I found that these people that don't think it's real kind of are influenced by their parents or their elders.
Okay.
I think it's as someone who has struggled with mental health, hearing that people think it's like not real, definitely stings, because it's really real.
It's very real.
And I think like my parents' generation, it was a lot
I'm in
less.
that generation too.
Yes. I think you can speak to this point, but I think it was a lot less prevalent.
Oh, yeah.
Just focusing on it and paying so much attention to it as we do now. And so I think when teens aren't supportive of it, it's just like that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build community support and teen support around it. And I think it's a really hard thing to approach.
Yeah. I feel like at Robbie's Hope, like one of our initiatives at the very beginning, and I would really like to be able to see this happen. There's very, very few states, but we have to teach our students, our middle school students, our high school students about their brain.
Yes.
Like mental health and physical health are all one thing.
Yeah.
And I've read that there's even like people in medical school that they spend such a small amount of time about how the brain, your brain sends you messages, and it is very, very real. It's not a hoax. And I think education is part of the problem there. And yes, my generation, I just turned 50. A lot of your parents of your friends, it was not something that we ever were taught or even talked about, ever. But we're going to be able to change that.
Yes.
Okay. I was severely depressed the second semester of my freshman year. It was in the high of COVID, and I was struggling with so much. I couldn't get up in the mornings, and I ended up failing my classes. I'm still trying to make up for one bad semester, which might have cost me clubs, my dream school, scholarships, learning, and so much more. It's so overwhelming trying to fix it.
So I think I'm at the same age as this person because COVID hit when I was a freshman. Maybe I'm a year younger, but in terms of like struggling with classes and like failing classes and just not feeling like you did as much as you could. I think a lot of kids have felt this, especially because of COVID. And I think one of the things that our teachers try and stress to us is that like one grade, one paper, one test, one semester isn't going to determine how you do in the future. It's not going to determine where you end up as much as you think it will. It's really, in hindsight, it's really not as important as you think it is. And although you feel that way in the moment, like it will pass. Like it's in 5 years, you're not even going to remember the bad grade that you got on that test. And so I think it's a very in the moment type thing. Especially with seniors now, finding out about colleges. Right now we're in the midst of college applications and getting decisions back. I think a lot of people can blame rejection or deferrals on like a semester that they had, because I think it's easy to do that. But we're actually in the midst of making a podcast about college now. I think like colleges are so arbitrary, and so you really can't compare apples to apples and colleges to colleges or you to another student, because like we really honestly just don't even know how like the acceptances work. Like we don't know what's going through their mind when they read our
they're making those decisions.
Yeah, they're making it in the moment. Like it's just, you really can't blame it on anything, you know. Like at this point you've done what you've done. You can't do anything about it now. Like I think just looking forward instead of regretting the past is really important.
Yeah. But that's hard to do as a freshman.
Oh yeah.
You're a senior with a little bit more experience.
Yes.
Like, yeah. And just the weight of that. There's a lot in that person's statement, just like the fact of the pressures that they are feeling. And when I read that, the not being able to wake up in the morning, like that truly is a sign of depression, a symptom. Like they say that it's like it's physically hard to remove yourself from bed. So I just think I want to point that out, like for our listeners, if you feel like that, that's a really clear sign. Hey, you need some help. So
it's good to point out.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to hear from a college student. I'm currently in college, and I hope that I can reach my goals no matter how hard they may be. I'm going into quite a rigorous field, and sometimes it gets really hard to stay on track. I see a bright future for myself as long as I keep pushing through.
I think this is positive.
I think so too.
I think it's a good mindset that this person has. Acknowledging that what you're doing is difficult is really important, because oftentimes people will just regard whatever they're doing as, oh, it's easy, I can do it, like I can play it off. But in reality, it might not be that way. And I think you have to be honest with yourself, because I think that's one of the main ways that you're going to actually be able to get through whatever you're doing and whatever you're working on.
Acknowledging that it is hard.
Yeah, acknowledging that it's hard and that you may struggle with it. And that's super normal. But yeah, I think I really like how this person knows that what they're doing is difficult, but they see themselves having a bright future as long as you keep working hard. I think it's really good to know.
I like that this person has set goals. Like, yes. I can reach my goals. I can reach my goals.
It goes back to the affirmations.
Yeah. I sometimes lie to my classmates. I sometimes lie to my classmates. By lie, I mean over-exaggerate things in hopes they will like me.
I think this is another social anxiety comment. I think for a lot of teens, it's really hard to, especially when you're meeting new people and you're trying to make friends, it can be really easy to cover up your personality and, like I said before, men to others' personalities, and just kind of embellish, I guess.
Embellish yourself.
Yeah, embellish yourself to people to try and, I don't know, make yourself seem more interesting and likable. I think everyone struggles with that. I think that's
everybody wants to be liked,
exactly.
Right? Everybody wants to be accepted.
Yeah.
And we are most critical of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, this is definitely really normal.
This one's interesting. I write my own music, but never share it with anyone.
I wanted to add this in because I've been in the same situation. I write my own poetry, and before, like last year, I never shared it with anyone, but for me and maybe for this person, it was used as an outlet to your feelings and your thoughts. And so I think it's great that this person does this, but I think I would encourage them to share it. It can be really rewarding, and just sharing whatever you've produced. And it doesn't even have to be with a lot of people. It can just be with your family or your friends or someone you trust, is really great, because just sharing an experience is really nice, and it really helps bond two people, I think.
Don't have guilt, don't have shame, Be proud of what you're doing. I think I use the word like, oh, this is interesting, because I've heard this like commonly with young people. Like, I have this interest, I have this thing that I do, and there's like this shamefulness. Like, it's not the norm. Well,
yes,
it's okay if you like it, and finding those trusted people to share it with.
Especially if it's like, if you think if you're embarrassed by it, honestly, I think a lot of people would think it's really cool. Like, if it's something that not many people do, I don't think people would see that as a bad thing. I think people would welcome it and appreciate it. And yeah, I think.
And if they don't, maybe those aren't the people that
yes.
are right for you to have in your circles.
Definitely.
I really hope to become a therapist. I am working my ways towards it right now, and it's on the horizon. I'm so excited but scared. But I know that this is where my heart lies, helping others. Smiley face.
Yeah, I really like this one. I really wanted to end with this one because obviously it's a positive note. And I think that kind of speaks to what we're trying to do at Robbie's Hope, is help others and, spread mental health awareness. And I think this point really speaks to our mission.
I hear from a lot of people, I don't mean to interrupt, I hear from a lot of young people that they're interested in the field of mental health and helping others. The world of becoming a therapist is not going to be easy. Excited but scared. Helping others is scary for certain. I hear you as I interrupted you, Lila, like helping others, like that is certainly our goal. I would like to be able to see like young people, like we don't all need therapists. What we need, I think, by listening to so many of these comments and confessions and secrets of young people, is we need people that we can trust. We need to be able to talk about our feelings, and we can do that with one another.
Yes.
We can have those conversations. We don't have to be judgmental of ourselves, and we can help one another. And It's by just taking that time to be vulnerable, taking that time to be authentic, and putting those, you mentioned so many like tools, like you've seen from other students and from other young people, and that you've learned and worked on yourself. And I know it, like through my journey, I have to still do that. Like, what tool works for me now? Is it talking? Is it writing? Is it self-care? Is it working out? Like, how does that change?
Yeah. I think especially now, just being there for your peers is what's really gonna be meaningful in the long run.
Being there for your peers.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this has been really great.
Yes. Well,
Lila,
thank you for having me. This was so exciting.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the time and the effort that you have put into Hopeful Conversations. You've done an amazing job. I do think you are the producer. You've written the questions, you've found our guests. I love that it comes from the point of view of a teenager, a young person that brings your life experience. And I'm just really super, super proud of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Kari. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I've definitely had a really fun time setting it all up.
Awesome. Well, until next time, tune in to Hopeful Conversations and remember hope. Hold on, pain ends.